Do you want to improve at a quicker pace? Check out the GitGud Course. Instead of just understanding concepts, you'll learn how to implement them directly into your driving. What makes it effective is the approach and practical drills. Together, we're gonna focus on breaking down those complex concepts into small digestible bits that are simple to understand. Everything from the course was tested and refined during the years in coaching sessions, so what I ended up with was the ones that I saw were the most effective. Let's elevate your racing skills together. Alright, before starting the track guide, if you want to support the channel, if you learn something out of this video, feel free to give it a like and a subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, but it will really help me push this with the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you want to leave a comment, feel free to do that as well. Let's talk about the difficult corners and whatnot. Now, jumping into the track guide itself, for turn 1, this is quite tricky because you can gain or lose a lot of lap time. What I'm using as a reference for braking is the 50-meter board. I want to brake slightly past the 50, but it's mostly at 50, applying the initial peak pressure. So it's a late braking zone, quick downshifting into second gear, but the most important thing is going super early on power. Because this leads to a long straight, the earlier you're gonna be on power, the most time you're gonna gain. So I'm braking after the 50, as you can see here. I'm picking initially high, so I'm aiming to go around 85, 80, maybe even 90, and then quickly dropping it, downshifting already to second gear. So instantly you want to do 2 quick downshifts while going into the corner, and you want to touch this curve like this. You should be already on full throttle. So the highlight is this, look whenever I'm touching the throttle at this point. So it's even before the apex. You want to be this early on power, you want to cut this curve, and on the exit you will find yourself going all the way to the grass like this. That's perfectly fine. So if it's something that you should hyper focus, is being early on power and having no gap in your brake and throttle braces. This is one of the most common mistakes, and by the way, if you want to learn more, if you want to accelerate your progress in sim racing, check out my course, it's in the video description. A lot of people improved seconds just by being aware and knowing how to practice, how to put the racing theory into practice. Now, going into the next corner, if you have a good exit, you will gain a lot on this straight. But for the next corner, my reference for braking is again the 50-meter board. So at the 50 here, slightly past it, it's exactly like the previous corner. I'm applying the brakes. I don't want to brake super hard here. You will see a lot of drivers braking hard. I don't like that. I like to brake a bit softer to conserve the tires and to have a bigger minimum speed. So 70% braking, third gear, again, you're on power before hitting the curb. Super important again. And you will find yourself that you will apex around the white line, so barely use the curb. If you will use the curb, do it like I did, just half of it. And on the exit you should find yourself this close to the wall. Like this picture is what you should aim for, because you will carry a lot of speed, and you should use this part of the track because the suspension of the fixed setup allows you, so there's not a disadvantage in using it. For the next corner, taking close towards here, so this is the first apex, this will push you all the way to the outside here. And in terms of braking, this is a bit difficult to find the braking marker. For me, I'm mostly looking at whenever I'm almost straightening up the car. So for example, when I'm arriving from this part, notice that I have this steering angle applied. It's too much if you're gonna brake like this. You're gonna be the most efficient under braking if you're gonna brake with the steering wheel straight. So I can't brake right now. I'm still steering. The moment that I'm barely going towards the 0 degrees, then I'm applying the brake. So it's not a visual reference for braking, it's more like feeling the car and knowing when I will be efficient under braking. So not braking very hard, again 50%, downshifting to second, but what's important here is again early on power. Virtually this is just a big straight up until the downhill part, so the better exit you're gonna have here, the most time you're gonna gain. Going on power, at this point. Notice how early this is. And whenever you're building up the throttle, stay very close to this wall. This is key. And on the exit, you should get pushed more towards the center right. You don't want to arrive all the way to the right side. It means that you took an early apex. And this is just a big straight right now. You just want to focus on doing the smallest amount of steering angle toward this uphill part. If you will jerk the wheel too much, you will scrap speed with the front tires and you will lose time. Now going into the downhill part, this is gonna be interesting. So in terms of positioning, you should have the car on the left, and now we're attacking this part on the right side. So you're going downhill, pointing the car towards the right because you want to be very close to this kink in the wall here. Whenever this white line gets curved and goes from this part towards the right side, you want to apex here around this part. So I'm pushing the car around here, and whenever I'm arriving in this compression zone, I'm applying the brakes. Ideally, you will brake even later. So I'm applying the brakes right now. Ideally, this would be the initial touch of the brakes because you feel the compression and you have a bit more grip. That's the reason behind it. Now, braking here is you can easily brake too much or brake too early and lose a lot of lap time. What you should aim for is a spike in the brakes initially, like this, but to delay the downshift. So a small mistake that I'm doing here, I'm quickly downshifting to fourth around here. You should downshift to fourth around here instead. It's gonna make a huge difference in your minimum speed. In terms of a line itself, you want to spike the brakes initially, then drop the brakes and trail brake into this part while taking a lot of curb like this, because we want to draw basically the straightest possible line in between this part right here and the next orange part right here. You want to go as straight as you can. You don't want to do S's, you know, like going like a snake. So in order to achieve that and to be more efficient, we have to cut this curb like this, even more if you can, all the way to the grass without taking the off track. Now, in between this section, whenever we are taking this curve, because we have some steering angle, you don't want to brake hard. So that's the reason why I'm dropping the brakes. You will find some drivers that will drop the brakes even to 0. It can work, but it gives me more control if I still have like 10% braking like I'm having right now. Now pointing the car towards this part, and now I'm applying again the brakes. So the rhythm is hard brake, trail brake at the curb on the left side, now hard brake again onto this apex, having the car very closely on the right side and immediately pushing the throttle. Your goal would be to give it a blimp of 100%. In my case, I went to 80 or something, so not ideal. I should have had to 100. Now, whenever we're turning into the corner, I like to give it a blimp of brakes, like 10% braking, and immediately putting back the power. It's important when you go downhill to have the throttle applied, because the rear will be so loose whenever you have this elevation change, and you might find yourself spinning if you don't feed it a bit of throttle. So it's super important to give it this throttle on the downhill part, because the car is going to be more stable, but also you will gain on the exit because you will be earlier on power. So only advantages. Now for this corner right here, small mistake in my approach, like I'm dropping the throttle here. Ideally you want to go a bit wider initially, still be on throttle at this point, and now whenever you're braking, just brake harder, you know. So you will gain a bit more time if you can get on the brakes a bit harder but stay on the throttle more, if that makes sense. What I would suggest though is whenever you're braking into here, brake with the steering wheel straight. Notice this small detail in my steering wheel if we're looking in the center of the screen right now. So I'm turning right, and immediately whenever I'm braking, I'm straightening up the wheel. That's subconsciously for me. I want to brake with the steering wheel straight because this is such a difficult braking zone. And you want to stay all the way towards the right in second gear, then turn more and more and be super close to this part. And whenever you arrive at the letter E here, you should be on power. This is my cue to go on power, and you should be instantly 0-100. I had to do like a small correction here, and I even clipped the wall, so not ideal with the braking. I think you will do better if you're gonna brake a bit harder initially, but then the brake release, it has to be smooth. So if you will release too quickly, then you will have too much speed. If you will release too slowly, then the car will understeer. Going into the next corner, again, small mistake. So the lap was far from perfect. My optimal time was 3 or 4 tenths quicker than my best time. So usually that tells that there's a lot more potential in the lap. But it is what it is. Here, what I did wrong was that I turned in a bit too early. So here is gonna be a heavy braking zone. You will see people braking to 100%. 100% is not bad for a hot lap, but for the race itself, I would go to 90, 95, not 100. And while downshifting to third gear, you want to turn just a bit later. So instead of getting this apex at this point, you should get it instead here. You see, whenever you have this kink in the white line. If you will take it later, you will be able to stay on power, because I had this hesitation going in the beginning, and you will gain time. As a result, I'm losing 1/10 here. So be mindful of that. Apex just a bit later. And for the last corner, the braking point is this big wooden pole before the 50. Like right now, I'm applying the brakes. Again, it's quite a heavy braking, so 90%, because you're braking downhill, so you also have some speed already. And in terms of apex point in second gear, you want to hit this part where the curve ends and the white line is just with the concrete on the left and this drain around here. You want to take it like that, give it full throttle and use all the exit. And in short, that's a track guide of Bathurst with the GR86. I hope you have a great week ahead, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.